So this is going to be a review of The Last of Us, the HBO Max TV show adaptation of the game of the same name. Now, The Last of Us was one of those games that I had been hearing about for years, with my friends constantly telling me, you got to play The Last of Us, you got to play The Last of Us, you got to play the goddamn Last of Us. To where I was finally like, all right, I'll play it, goddamn it. This was a handful of years ago where I finally played the game. And true to word of mouth that I had heard about it, it was a very thematic game in both its tone and feel, and it obviously went on to be a classic in almost everyone's mind who played it. I played the game and I really enjoyed it. Very cinematic, very fun, very enjoyable, very different kind of game from the games that I usually like to go back and play. I still love to go back and watch the game over scenarios because those are a lot of fun in this game. As for the second game, The Last of Us Part 2, well, the less I say, the better. I say this to say that this review is coming from the perspective of someone who has played the game before, but I'll try to cover both sides for those who have played the game and those who have not and are coming into this series fresh. As is the trend now, they opted to go for a TV series for this instead of doing a movie, and that's what we got here for HBO Max. True to the story of the game, a virus outbreak is unleashed upon the world. Those who become infected essentially become flesh-eating zombies. The result of this outbreak is the collapse of civilization as the world knows it. During this time, a man named Joel is entrusted to bring a girl named Ellie across the country to a research facility, as Ellie may be the key to ending this global situation. That is complete and true to the story of the first game, as it should be. What's great about this story and concept is that how grounded it is in its nature, despite the whole crazed zombie thing going on. You see the situation that the world is in, and just the struggle to survive in the world without rules. The best thing is that it's not just the zombies or the infected, as they're called here, that you got to watch out for. It's the other people in this world trying to survive. In a world with little to no structure, you can't really trust anyone, and it's a big free-for-all in terms of doing what's necessary to survive. That translates into the characters that we see in the series. Not just your main ones in Joel and Ellie, but just everyone that we see. It's hard to really classify anyone as good or bad guys here, though there is a notable exception in episode 8. But everyone here has their own perspective and is just doing what is necessary to survive. As with the game, the first one anyway, the core focus here is on Joel and Ellie. In the game, Joel is this gruff, serious, kind of no-nonsense guy, and Ellie is a young, spirited, potty-mouthed teenager. That comes across with their TV counterparts here, although it kind of varies. They have Pedro Pascal as Joel here, in which, my goodness, what an early part of the year for that guy. But Pascal is really good here. I do think this version of Joel is notably softer and cuddlier than his PS4 counterpart. Doesn't hurt the writing or the character here, because the general stuff that still needs be still comes across. And I think in the end he did a really good job with this character, embodying this character. And he does have some fantastic scenes as the series goes on, with my favorite ones coming in the final episode, where he really conveyed the emotion that was needed, and I really did feel for this character, even though I obviously knew how things were going to play out. Ellie, I think, is truer to her PS4 counterpart here. The first step is getting someone who physically can, mostly look like her, which is done here. And the kind of like Ellie spirit we see when it comes to the language and just the attitude is done pretty well here. Like the game, Ellie's true shining moment comes in her solo mission in this series, which here takes place in episode 8. It's a great episode where the character really gets to shine and gets involved in an encounter that gets more and more effed up as it goes along. I remember playing the game in this part and intentionally effing up just to see how effed up these scenarios would go. And just to like, damn, these dudes that she's dealing with are really kind of fucked up here.
Fuck you.
You think you know me? Huh? Well, let me tell you something. You have no idea what I'm capable of.
I've talked a decent amount about the main characters and the other kind of human encounters in the story. But of course, there's also the infected, the main thing which has caused this collapse of the world. These guys are still pretty vicious and terrifying when the encounters happen. I mean, God help there's ever some kind of scenario where anything like this is ever encountered, it would be truly horrifying. I find the most terrifying ones to be, I guess, the early stage ones, the pre-clickers and bloaters, just because of how vast and vicious these guys are. They're still hideous to look at in the face. On a disappointing note, there aren't a whole lot of encounters with the clickers and the bloaters in this show. The lack of bloaters is something I think was a big missed opportunity, as these guys were absolute beasts in the game, and they certainly didn't F around when it came to giving you your game end scenario. While in the big picture, I don't think it hurts the show, I would have liked to have seen more infected scenes, specifically more scenes that invoked a true sense of terror and tension, because that's something I definitely thought the first game delivered on. I remember in the first game, there was a scenario where you're trapped in sort of an underground sort of basement area with Joel. It's just completely dark and you're dealing with a bunch of infected all around and even a bloater. Truly a terrifying scenario. And this show didn't really have any kind of scenes that kind of invoked those kind of feelings that I felt during the game. Where I believe that this show really shines is how accessible it is for those who have not played the game. For those who have not played the game or know the story, you're getting a very well directed series with great characters and performances and a fantastic look at a next level collapsed world scenario. I mean, eat your heart out, COVID. You got nothing compared to the infected scenario in this series. And for those who have played the game, you get the added perspective of seeing how things are compared to the original story in the game and how things played out. What was added, what was left out, what did they change around, and things that were actually made better, such as how they wove the original game's DLC into the fabric of the main story. Great stuff here. 9.5 out of 10 for HBO Max's The Last of Us. I really did enjoy this series. I thought it was a really good adaptation, TV show adaptation of the game story and just everything in the game mostly. It'll definitely be fascinating to see how they adapt the second game for a next second season of the show. The second game, for those who do not know, has very, I guess you call it non-linear storytelling when it comes to how it tells its story and how things played out. But I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't mind some creative liberties when it comes to stuff that happens in the second game, or maybe just rewriting the whole second game story in general. I'll leave it at that. So that'll do it for this review of HBO Max's The Last of Us. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.